So here are 5 lifters that I used to think were fake naturals. Now this is not a call out video unless you want to include me calling out my past self. So I will mention the 5 lifters and then explain why I changed my mind. Now it wasn't anything that they did, it was something that I did. The first one, Ronnie Coleman. Not the later Ronnie Coleman, not natural there, but the young Ronnie Coleman in around 1991. Now, I realize this is a little bit of a controversial one, and I even have friends that would probably bet their left nut that he was not natural in this picture. I actually do believe that he was natural. Now, Ronnie does have a history of confusing statements or statements that are clearly not quite true.
What percent body fat?
I was 0.33.
0.33. What does that mean?
But at the same time, a lot of his competitors actually say that he was natural. And if you look at what happened after that, I think that kind of progress in such a short amount of time is a good indicator that he was actually natural beforehand. Now, Derek also did a video on this, and he thinks that Ronnie was natural as well. And he kind of got blasted for this. A lot of people disagreed with him, and there's nothing wrong with disagreeing with his opinion or my opinion, but at the same time, a lot of the evidence against him being natural is just like, look at him, you can't look like this naturally. But keep in mind, we're talking about the GOAT. Number 2, and this is probably the most embarrassing on this list for me, is Steve Reeves. I was reading a lot of forums. Some people seemed very, very confident that of course he was on the drugs, even way back in like the 1940s, and realized that anyone can say anything on the internet. Okay? They can say stuff that they would never ever say face to face. They can seem supremely confident in what they're saying, even if there's no real evidence at all. They might point to Sergio Oliva saying, oh, for sure Steve Reeves was a fake natty. They were all doing it back then. But that's not really evidence, or at least it's not very strong evidence. So some people are so messed up mentally that they see a physique like Steve Reeves and they think, steroids. That's just their first thought. And that is pretty sad. Next one, a little bit more of a modern one. I think he recently took part in the British Natural Bodybuilding Federation competition. Nathan PT. I think his full name is Nathan Williams. And a lot of people seem absolutely 100% convinced that this guy is on drugs.
I mean, let me know, is this the nattiest of nattiest bodybuilders?
He clearly has pretty ridiculous genetics. He is very, very developed, symmetrical, proportion, etc. One thing I think it is important to keep in mind is that when you are in staged condition and you have peak genetics and you have all the right proportions and symmetry and muscle insertions, you're not going to look natural. If you take someone who is 0.000001% genetics, 1 in a million or however many zeros I said, and you have them do everything right for 15 years or 20 years, diet, sleep, training, everything, they're not going to look natural. Given most people's expectations of what is naturally achievable, they won't look natural. And people will say something like, oh, he's bigger than Larry Wheels. He's not. He has better bodybuilding genetics. He's in better conditioning because he's getting ready for a show, but he's not bigger than Larry Wheels, okay? Again, lighting, angles, pump, insertions, all these things do a lot to change the perception of a physique. And I'm not saying he's small by any means, but I've seen pictures of people who are like 145 pounds on stage, but because of the lighting and the angles and, you know, the muscle insertions and the full muscle bellies, they look like 100 pounds heavier. Number 4, we have Russell Orhii. Now, I know Greg Doucette did a natty or not on him, and I think his first conclusion was that he was not natty, and then it, you know, came to light that he had been drug tested a bunch of times. And drug testing doesn't mean everything, but I actually think that he is natural, or at least is potentially natural. Okay, he has just the right frame. Again, genetics matter a lot. Okay, I would be interested to actually know about his ancestry.
It's in your blood.
And I would not be surprised if he was Nigerian.
That's racist.
Yeah, where in Africa was he from?
Nigeria.
Yeah, that's what I was going to guess. So I also had a Nigerian roommate, And Greg Knuckles also told a story about a hyper responder, also Nigerian. And basically, this guy in college would just lift like once or twice a week, 200 with abs, probably 5'10", repping 315. Like it definitely seems to be that corner of the world is where a lot of these freaks come from. It's pretty wild.
I know Team 3D Alpha has also done a few videos on Nigeria and on just the crazy genetics that some people have, and some people are just gifted.
Think about it, guys. You check Russell, you add some sensu beans, you know what I'm talking about when I say sensu beans, and you end up with Victor Richards.
And so if they use their abilities and develop those talents, they're not going to look natural. Number 5 is Lubomba. I first started following this guy on Instagram, I don't know, a year or two ago, and I was skeptical for a while. And the reason I was skeptical is because he was like 100 kilos and pretty lean, and I was only like, 86, 87 kilos, around the same conditioning. And that gap, it's so easy to explain away with steroids. It's so easy to drag other people down rather than building yourself up. But now I'm 100 kilos. I'm not as lean, but once you get closer to some of these guys, your perspective changes. It's the old meme, anyone bigger than me is on steroids. I know it's usually said as a joke, but that's actually how a lot of people think. Now, there are two groups of people who seem to be the saltiest. The first would be the lifetime intermediates who don't really have their shit together.
That's impossible.
They're usually a little bit younger, maybe they're a teenager, maybe they're a little bit black-pilled, they're not seeing the results they want. They are here, they see someone else up here, and their response is just drugs. Oh, drugs. Like, drugs do so much, drugs do everything, it's all drugs. Anyone in the fitness industry is in drugs, anyone with natural in their bio is on drugs, anyone competing as a natural bodybuilder, drugs. Often these people hop on drugs, and usually they're pretty disappointed. Now, the second salty group, and these are the saltiest motherfuckers out there, are the ones who took drugs but look less impressive than the top naturals. So they trained naturally, they got to here, and then they went enhanced, they went to here, then they went really enhanced, started taking a whole bunch of shit, got to here. They see someone who's here and is claiming natural, and they can't deal with that because that is a tough pill to swallow. It's a bit of a kick in the dick, don't you think? Not a kick in the balls because, the testes are so small, they just evade everything. And I know a lot of enhanced lifters, certainly not all, but a lot, who never learned how to train. They never learned how to train. They started taking drugs really, really early, and they never ever plateaued, so they never ever had to actually figure things out, and so they rely on the drugs a lot. They think drugs do way more than they actually do. I know guys who take steroids, but don't lift. I've seen multiple forum posts that are not trolling, they seem to be completely true, where someone just took the steroids without lifting. Now, I think it's important to realize that we have expectations of what an enhanced physique looks like and what a natural physique looks like. But there's going to be a ton of overlap. Again, if you take someone with the top genetics and they do everything right for many, many years, they're not going to look natural. On the other hand, you could have someone who is very, very enhanced, but they don't have their shit together, or maybe they have just complete trash genetics, and they don't look like they even lift. And fake naturals, they do exist. I'm not saying that they don't, okay? Michael Hearn, Simeon Panda, we know the usual suspects, half of TikTok, etc. Drugs are very, very common, and there are people who lie through their teeth about their drug usage. But it's not everyone. And in a lot of ways, the proliferation and normalization of steroids has kind of made natural training expectations to be lower for a lot of people. In the 1990s, Kenyan distance running really was taken off. Now, they had always been good. I think Kip Keino won the 1968 Mexico Olympics or something. But in the 1990s, they really started to dominate running, especially the marathon. Now, you would think that this would drag everyone else up. So seeing people compete at this level would cause everyone else to elevate their game. That's not what happened. A lot of countries actually got worse because they just gave up. They saw these people dominating the marathon with these spectacular times, churning out so many athletes, and they just gave up. They just stopped trying. And I think that's kind of what is happening in the fitness industry. And so you have these guys who are the top naturals, and no one thinks they're actually natural because most people with those kinds of physiques are enhanced. And obviously comparing being Kenyan and taking steroids is not a direct and clear comparison. You can't become Kenyan, but you can become enhanced. And that's what a lot of people do. They do their 2 or 3 years training naturally. Maybe they don't get the results they want, mostly because they don't know what they're doing. And so they hop onto that side of things. And then often they're still disappointed. And so elevate your natural standards. Again, a lot of what has changed isn't them, it's me. It's me improving myself. And rather than trying to drag other people down, elevating yourself is always the way forward. Anyway, if you're interested in everything I've learned about training over the past 3 or so years that has helped a ton with improving my results, you can consider grabbing a copy of my book, Resurrecting Your Gains. Link is in the bio or in a pinned comment down below. Thank you so much for the support, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.